You ever wonder what people outside the church think of you inside the church? I mean, they're thinking about coming to church, but they don't know what that experience is going to be. Well, I'm telling you, in this episode, we're going to talk about the very things you need to do to help people who don't know about the church feel comfortable coming in and enjoying the church, having an experience, whether it's digital or in person, that they'll never forget. Stay tuned. Here we go. Hey, it's great to be with you on this episode of Church Tips. I'm with my buddy Ryan Wakefield, who's the co-founder of Church Marketing University. They co-founded it with a couple of guys named Jonathan and Dick Hardy.
So, couple amazing guys.
Oh, we had a lot of fun with that. 5 years ago, it was birthed in Ryan's heart, and it became CMU in the spring of 2016, and then Dick and Jonathan went down the road, and Ryan just blew this thing up. He's doing an amazing job, and he's in. The reason we're doing this podcast today is he has a spring and a fall enrollment for Church Marketing University, and where there are a couple of windows where you can get into CMU and actually begin to access all the content in there. So you'll see in the show notes, Leaders.Church/CMU. If you'll go there, you'll be able to just go in and kick the tires and read all the good stuff that's available and see what the Lord maybe can do through you and your church to reach your community in ways you've never done before. So, Ryan, give us a jump start on this whole conversation. What are some things you're talking to churches everywhere, frankly, all around the world? Yep. What are some newer things you're doing that are helping churches, particularly during this COVID time?
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned it like last spring, we were just finishing up our enrollment. We had a big plan together, and the world kind of flipped upside down. Yeah. So inside CMU, we kind of adjusted really quick, and we spent, weeks upon weeks helping churches get live streaming, get digital ministry, and move over to digital giving. And so that's what I love about CMU. It's not just a static, hey, here's a couple videos. It's a community, and it's an ongoing support to help guide churches through whatever they're facing. Yeah. And so in that process, churches are trying out a whole lot of new strategies and ideas. And for those of us who like to innovate and try new things, it's a cool time. It's an exciting time. And so we're seeing a lot of those ideas rise to the top, like the ones that are really working well. And we're finally kind of rounding that corner of like, man, this is actually proving out all over the world. And we've got over 1,000 churches now.
That is amazing. 1,000 churches in CMU
all over the world. And one of the things that we're testing out with a few churches is a new process. We used to call it Plan Your Visit, or Kids Pre-Registration was another one, or, there's a lot of that where basically trying to help a guest come visit in person. Yeah. The hard part of that is there's a lot of churches that aren't having either in-person services, or there's a lot of our community that isn't ready for that. I've seen lots of different stats based on the county, but I think most of what I've seen is like people in your community, over 50% of them aren't ready, and these are not just church people, these are just community-wide, aren't ready to go to like an in-person worship gathering. Right. So if you think about that, and what we do all the time is help churches get more visitors, you think, okay, there's a problem if the vast majority of your community isn't ready to come visit in person. So what do we do? So one of the new strategies that we're seeing is moving from kind of plan your visit or kids pre-registration to plan your experience. Yeah. What this does is it allows you to have a call to action for your community that meets them where they're at. So now, whether it's on your website or social media or wherever they're hearing about the church, you can say, hey, we'd love for you to go online and use a link and plan your experience. Yeah. And then that basically, it kind of steps them through a process. It'll get their name, contact information. That's huge. We talk about that all the time. Yeah, absolutely. In CMU is you don't have relationship or the ability for a relationship until you have contact information. And then it'll ask you, okay, do you want to have your experience be digital or in person? Yeah. And that's what I love about this, is there's a lot of churches I think have made the mistake that, hey, unless you're ready to come visit in person, you're dead to us. Yeah. And we talked about that in a previous episode. Yeah. But what's cool about this is it allows everybody to take a spiritual next step. And I think that's really important, is as a pastor, and maybe that's one of the kind of the tips here, is like think through, are you giving your people in your community to take a next step, regardless of whether you feel comfortable visiting in person or digital? So the plan your experience is something that's really, really cool. We're starting to see it take off in a lot of our CMU churches. We had one church down in New Orleans recently here last week, they had 5 Plan Your Experiences. 3 of them were digital and 2 of them were in person. Really? So when we're starting to kind of flesh that out, they're starting to run Facebook ads to it. So now the pastors on a Facebook ad say, hey, I'd love to meet you, but we have this whole new approach where you can come experience what God has designed for you, whether that you're ready to come in person or digital. So there's a lot of creative ways pastors are getting the word out and then walking people through that, connecting with them, and then getting them where they need to be based on their responses.
Okay, a couple of things with that. When was the genesis of this Plan Your Experience?
So really at the very beginning of this whole season, where it's like, man, we've got to take our old way of doing things and adjust it to make it.
Had the spring launch happened?
Yeah.
Okay, now this, I want to make a point if you're watching this. The spring launch had happened. This was not part of what the spring launch was. But when something happened, like COVID, CMU responded in a way that helped those churches move forward. And let me tell you something. This is open up through October 15th. You can go to Leaders.Church/CMU, and you can get it in CMU up through October 15th. Something's going to happen in November besides the election. Something's going to happen in December. Something's going to happen. And you want a team member like Ryan Wakefield walking with you, helping you develop and process resources that are going to help move you forward. Because that's the reality.
One of the things that we do too, similar to Leaders.Church, is there is a active community. We do a Facebook group for our churches. And when COVID hit, I think the first 2 weeks we did something like 28 hours of live coaching. I mean, it was nuts. We were putting all sorts of guides, Google Doc together, live streaming guides, live streaming kits. We went out, shot a whole bunch of photography of families on devices. We did social media graphics and videos and countdowns. We tried to say, hey, we want this to feel like you have a marketing team. Like you really do. We are your marketing team. And so, man, we were doing anything we could to help churches make that turn from, the world's flipped upside down. How do we do all things digital now? And so, that's what we try to do.
Let me tell you, I know the heart of this guy. I've known him for almost 20 years, or maybe close to 20 years, and his desire is to see your church grow. He knows, like I know, that you were called of the Lord at some point in the past, not to sit on your haunches and just babysit a church. You were called to reach more people for Jesus. You were called to communicate the good that happens inside your church to those outside the church. And that's exactly what CMU does. I mean, this whole thing of the Plan Your Experience. By the way, I want to put a note here even on that. We make mention that, there's 50% plus or minus people just aren't ready to come back in together. You probably have an opinion about that. He has an opinion. I have an opinion. Well, let me tell you something. Your opinion of whether you think they should want to come back or shouldn't want to come back is not going to change the fact that there's a boatload of people in your community that are either fearful and I get it, the political side of, okay, that shouldn't happen or that should happen. Listen, your job as the leader is to help bring people along and know where they're at. That's the part I caught for that. Know where they're at, and then be able to, in this case right here, talk about how to plan your experience. I am so excited about what I think that is going to be able to do for the pastors and church leaders who jump into this fall enrollment. Again, you want to do that by October 15th. Just go to Leaders.Church/CMU, jump in, kick the tires, look everything over. Now, you've got, tell me some of the mechanics of CMU. You've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. Flesh that out just a little bit.
Yeah, basically, our heart is to help churches. We wanted to help you get more visitors every single week. We think for the vast majority of pastors that jump in, you will oh my word, I love this. Where's this? Why didn't I know about this 5 years ago?
I mean, I'm telling you, I've heard pastors say that kind of thing. Oh my goodness, because it is chock full of content that's going to help you grow your church.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if you're like, man, it's not a good fit, or no, I wasn't expecting all this, whatever, there's no pressure. Our goal is not to get money out of you. Our goal is to go on a journey with you, and we think you're going to love it. So if you get in, you don't love it, man, we will give you your money back there in the first month. No questions asked whatsoever. Honestly, we don't have a whole lot of people ask for it, but when they do, it's hey, no problem whatsoever. No problem. Most of them hey, it wasn't a good time. Well, I'm actually resigning now, or something crazy happened. So no, they'd be hey, I'll jump in the next enrollment. Okay, great.
And I want to tell you, the investment that you make, the return on your investment, if you'll calculate your giving per capita, you'll determine that in a year's period of time, you're going to have to generate somewhere between a half of a person or a full person new to your church, and you've paid for it. I'm just telling you, this is one of the best investments you can make. And so when you're talking to a church board, if you need to get permission in that way, that's exactly what you want to talk about, the return on investment.
Can
Ryan,
I tell them something new that we started doing too?
Talk to us.
I don't know if you even know that we're doing this now, but we're creating kits that go along with our courses.
Okay.
So we like to say that like the courses practice, kits is like game time. And in fact, if you just go through our kits, you learn all the principles that we talk about in the courses. So it's kind of like the shortcut.
Yeah.
But we have kits for like Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, January sermon series. And what these kits are is everything that you need to pull off that event. So all your invite videos, your bumper videos, your social media graphics, your emails, your follow-up plan, your text message.
Man, I'd jump in it just for that.
There's
my goodness.
75 different things. All your social media posts and collaterals and examples, ideas.
Oh, that's good.
It's like when churches see it, like they'll hear me say kit. Like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. But when you actually see everything that you get in there, talking about return on investment, they're like, man, one of these kits is worth this, let alone all of the other stuff that goes along with it. So we're constantly thinking, how do we make a pastor's job easier and make them more effective?
Exactly.
Make them look a whole lot better and see more lives changed in their church transformed. So that's what we're trying to do.
Another thing Ryan and I created a few years ago was a series called Cultivating Generosity. And it was a 4-part video series where we went through and we articulated 37 different points of things you can do and should do to move your church forward in generosity. Now, there were 7 of them that were some overlap, but they were, call it 30 items that you could do. And I'm telling you, you go in there and do 1/10 of those things we talked about, and you're going to increase giving way beyond what this investment is. So I strongly encourage you to go to Leaders.Church/CMU. Go in there, kick the tires, look things over. You're available to...
Can I share something else?
Yeah, tell me. Well, yeah. I mean, what am I going to do? Say no? Come on.
The Generosity series, again, one of my favorite series that is in CMU. Yeah. And during this COVID time, we actually launched a new series on generosity called Generosity U.
Oh,
and it was designed specifically to help churches make the leap to digital and recurring giving during this time. We had our friend Nathan Teagarden write emails, weekly emails. We did weekly social media posts. We did coaching. We did emails that you can send out to move people from digital giving to recurring giving. It was a whole life of its own, all during this time, because we knew pastors we all want to market, but if you don't have money, you can't do it. So there was a need there. And we're like, man, we were feeling it for CMU churches. So we created this whole new thing called Generosity U specifically for this season. So we're always doing that sort of stuff.
I'm telling you, I've been around the block long enough, you see the gray hair here, to know there are resources out there, and then there are resources out there. And I'm just telling you, this guy and his team will jump in the saddle and be your marketing team for you, and you're going to see the Lord do amazing things as you move forward. Any parting shots?
No, if I could help you guys, would love to have you a part of the CMU family. If you're a part of Leaders.Church and if you're not, you need to be. I don't know what you're doing. Go jump into that first, because the first thing you need to do is get the leaders going. You need to get a leadership development. You need to get your team growing. When you got the leadership going, then the marketing element becomes so much more effective because you got the team in place. So step 1, go jump into Leaders.Church. If you're already dialed in there, man, and you're ready to say, okay, we're dialed in there, how do we get more visitors? I think you'll absolutely love CMU. So if I can serve you guys, I'd love to do that.
There we go. Go to Leaders.Church/CMU, and you're going to be glad you did. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Make it a great one, and be blessed.
Hey, Jonathan here. Real quick before you go. Everything in your ministry rises and falls on your leadership. So investing in your leadership is essential to staying healthy and growing the ministry. And that's why I want to invite you to join us inside the Leaders.Church membership. This online streaming service for pastors gives you access to more than 300 videos plus training material to level up your leadership and improve your ministry skills. If you'd like to do that, I want to invite you to go to Leaders.Church/boost. Again, that's Leaders.Church/boost. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Church Tips Podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.